If this really was like a movie, there wouldn't be a layover. I wouldn't have to go back to Chicago. Spoken like a true obsessive who's lost within a fantasy. But can it be this fantasy is history? And to make it for me, I hopped on board that buzzard with mothership right beside me, leaving it all behind me to see what it was I was fleeing to. And pardon you for answering late, but I guess late makes for less mistakes when the camera's shaking. There's no just rehearsal, a need to be fake. I want it all for what it is, and this trip is meant to be business, but it ain't, and I'm aware of this as soon as I hit the pavement. Upgraded my wheels rental for something that feels mental. American sports car, bright red metal, I hit the pedal and explore the mountains. No accounting for accounting jobs lost in pursuit of more incentive. Inventive techniques for disguising weakness as momentum. And tell them I'm in town to figure out what's going down, but the real reason I'm around is to find out how life is found. And then a silver Chevy pulls up in front of the driveway. I keep glancing at her sideways. I know this is my day. If this were a movie, I'd have kissed her on the spot, and she would blush even more than me. If this were a movie, there would be no time lost, and I would sweep her up off her feet. If this were a movie, I'd have kissed her on the spot when I followed her into that tree. And so we cried. And if this were a movie, there wouldn't be a layover. We would live ever after happily. She stood so close to me. Is it supposed to be so hard to breathe when she is so near me that I can smell her shampoo or perfume? I don't know what to do. Should we get in the car, vroom vroom V8? But the two-seater feels like a very big room, and there's too much space between us. But I guess somebody turned the heat up. She likes to pull her feet up on the seat. She's glancing at me, and I'm glancing at she. I can't believe she is real. As we throw discs across the field, I feel like I might keel over and realize that I'm just dreaming. But it seems like there's a fire in my breast, and the best of me sets itself free. This is healthy, I realize. At the same time, I followed her up a tree. She pokes me with a branch before I break my nervous banter out. I look at the smile on her mouth and my brain shouts, lock eyes. I see the deep brown I can't disguise, the fire inside, and my mind is melted alive, my blood is flowing blind. Gravity doesn't matter, I could live up here by her side, but I slide down to the ground and watch her follow me. It's like music. If this were a movie, I'd have kissed her on the spot, and she would blush even more than me. If this were a movie, there would be no time lost, and I would sweep her up off her feet. If this were a movie, I'd have kissed her on the spot when I followed her into that tree. And so we cried. And if this were a movie, there wouldn't be a layover. We would live ever after happily. There aren't words. No, seriously, there aren't words for this. I say it was like music, but that can't do it either. More like a fever to the beat of a dreamer through high-end speakers. Clearer through the clouds of looking back after a while, as we sang a song from this album that I'd recorded to make her smile. I skipped a line, but she didn't notice, while I didn't notice she was trying not to cry. I asked her why. It makes her emotional, and she listens all the time. I just smile at my own rhymes, just a matter of time. I thought, tell her write the next line. At one point I held her close while we stood out in the cold, and I couldn't count the second she held me close, so no, I could not let go. I just stood there holding tight, closer than we'd ever been before. She felt so warm, I felt her tremble in just one moment. She was curled in between my arms like I was keeping her from being frozen, and she pressed her head against my chest. I never wanted it to be over, but we finally separated. Her lips at my forehead before she left, and at her window she shouted, I love you, before she sped away. If this were a movie, I'd have kissed her on the spot, and she would blush even more than me. If this were a movie, there would be no time lost, and I would sweep her up off her feet. If this were a movie, I'd have kissed her on the spot when I followed her into that tree. And so we cried. And if this were a movie, there wouldn't be a layover. We would live ever after happily. We climbed inside of a decommissioned airplane and spray painted our names inside of it. She said it made her feel like a rebel. And at the time, I wasn't thinking about the fact that 48 hours later, I'd be in Chicago waiting on another plane to take me further away from her. Huh. Guess it is a bit like a movie.